Hi beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be continuing with our 5 stages of a relationship series, and we're going to be doing the composite chart today of stage 2 of relationships. So as a brief introduction, stage 2 is what is also called when reality sets in, or the crisis stage of relationships, meaning that we've passed the first stage, which is sort of the infatuation attraction stage, and now the kind of infatuation wears off in stage 2, which could take any time between 6 months up to 2 years from meeting somebody. So we begin to see certain flaws in another person, and how we deal with these flaws will show whether the relationship is going to keep going or not, or whether the relationship will stop here because of too much disappointment. And so flaws are not really big issues in relationships because it doesn't show that you don't love each other. It doesn't show that your partner or your love interest is incompatible with you, or that they are not such a great person. They just have something about them that is different from you, their quirks and their habits that's going to be really hard to change. So in this video we're going to be looking at signs in the composite chart that is showing that the two of you may or may not be able to move past these flaws based on how you work together with regards to the dynamics of your relationship itself. Whether the relationship has the potential to allow you to push past the flaws and have a certain amount of tolerance towards each other's real self. That's not always very romantic, or not. So there are 3 criteria within the second stage of relationships that can contribute to how you're going to work together in your relationship dynamic. The first is respect, the second is understanding, and the third is what I would call you, the criteria of you. But for this particular video, we will be first addressing a criteria in relationship of respect first. So if there's respect within the relationship itself, this means that the both of you allow the other person to be themselves without trying to change them. This also means that if there are some issues that are starting to arise in this part of the relationship, that both people are taking responsibility and not blaming the other person. Respect also means that you give rights for the other person to say what they have to say, to give opinions, and you listen to that, and then you try to work with that. If there's no or very little respect in your relationship, this means that you're doing things to try to change the other person's flaws, which is going to be really hard to do. You can't really change someone's quirks and their habits. You're kind of stepping over the boundaries when you try to do that. Unless the other person is willing to change by themselves, then that's another story. Blame that is being imposed on your partner without you seeing that you also have a role, that relationships are a two-way street, that can also mean that there's little respect within your relationship. The first sign that is going to show that there is some respect going on is when you check the composite charts and there's several planets in the 11th or the 5th house. This is a good sign that there's respect there, because the 5th house is sort of a house that is ruled by Leo. There's a certain amount of integrity and dignity there with the 5th house, and when you've got planets in the composite there, yes, you're going to be playful with each other, you're going to be wanting to have a lot of fun together, but you have a certain dignity and integrity within you, meaning that you are honest with yourself and you're able to see your behaviors clearly. Only when you see your behaviors clearly that you're honest with yourself. And with this placement, the two people can see clearly when they are trying to change or step over the person's boundaries, because that's not going to be true to who they are. They would be seeing that they are not honorable in themselves. So this is the first. The 11th house is showing that there's respect because the two of you can have a wider perspective of each other's weirdness or quirks. There's a certain amount of friendship in your relationship since the start of a relationship, and you're allowing each other to grow. And when you have a larger perspective of the other person, you kind of don't feel like these petty little things are going to mean incompatibility. It's not going to mean something big. They're just little things. You don't make mountains out of molehills with this one. So respect is going to be generated from that. Another sign that there can be respect in the dynamic of your relationship is when you have Venus in an opposition, a conjunction, a trine, sextile, quintile, or biquintile to Saturn in the composite chart. Saturn, is a planet that has a lot to do with respect, dignity, integrity. It's a Capricorn energy. It's very honest, very loyal in that sense. Saturn, having good Saturn in SYNASTRY and composite charts shows that relationships can continue to blossom long term because, first of all, you're able to combine your lifestyles together. But it also can contribute to something long term because you're allowing respect. And this puts a sort of a formal tone to a particular aspect of your relationship. It's not the whole thing, right? But there's a part of your relationship that there's a formalness to it. There's this classic way of relating to each other. So that means that you set boundaries in that particular part of your relationship. And when you make your boundaries clear to another person, they know that they would not be stepping over it. And they have dignity and integrity themselves to know that they should not be stepping over someone else's boundaries. Saturn and Venus together can cause a bit of a separation no matter the aspect, but some aspects we're going to take the separation with ease, some not so much with ease, but it's not separation as in a breakup. It's just separation as in that you can have your own life and your own lifestyle supports the other person's lifestyle. And when you do that, when there's a certain amount of showing the other person that you have your own life, but yet your own life doesn't conflict with their lifestyle, we're going to respect each other. I appreciate you. I respect you that you have your own life going on. I'm proud of you. I admire you that you have your own thing going on. I put you up on a pedestal, maybe even sometimes. And so that can lead to respect. Another sign that can show good respect in the composite chart is when there's a good amount of Uranus or Jupiter with the sun and moon. So Uranus in a trine, sextile, even opposite, quintile or biquintile, the sun and moon, can show a respect for each other's worldviews, ideologies, mindset, and way of thinking, as well as a respect for the way that the other person needs to express themselves freely or needs to find a sense of freedom in their own life. Jupiter conjunct, maybe opposite, trine, sextile, quintiles or biquintile to the sun and the moon, can also show that either you have very similar beliefs in life and you respect each other's beliefs, or you may have different beliefs in life, but it doesn't cause a lot of conflict in your relationship because you understand things from a larger perspective as well. You know that everybody needs to establish their own beliefs in life, and it doesn't really pull each other away from your own life and having a life together. Jupiter square is different. Jupiter square can show that you have different beliefs and they actually separate you, but the opposition can offer a balance, meaning that you may have different backgrounds, maybe different religion even, coming from a different culture, but still you're able to be together because you have respect for each other. A couple of signs that is showing that respect may be harder to come by in a relationship in the composite chart. The first one is when you have Mars and Neptune together in a square, opposition, conjunction, in conjunction, or semi-sextiles. this is going to show that Neptune is a very boundaryless planet, and Mars is an aggressive planet. So the aggression steps over boundaries for both people in the composite. So it's a relationship that is built on taking action that actually steps over each other's boundaries. And sometimes this means sexuality as well, sexuality that crosses over each other's boundaries, because one or the other person has a certain amount of dependency on their self-esteem, on being able to weaken the other partners, your particular partner's sense of self-esteem. This is unconscious, but you're strengthening your own self through the weakening of the other person's efforts, energies, and even sexuality. Unless you've got Mars doing other more empowering aspects in the composite chart, then we sort of have a direction that we should channel this Mars energy onto rather than onto the Neptune. So that's what's happening with this. And if you've got this one in your composite chart, you have to work with this, means to recognize, first of all, that it's happening, to have a bit of clarity, and maybe that requires listening to people outside of your relationships or doing some research online to see if your partner is stepping over your boundaries, if you have set boundaries. And then when you feel like they are doing it, you have to walk away with this one. You have to stop the loop of the codependency that's happening, or the dependency on the other person depending on you. So if that's happening when your partner seems to display behaviors of, I came over to your house yesterday and now you're not coming over to my house. How could you not do this? I've done so much for you. That's not what a relationship is built on. A relationship is built on giving, both people giving equally. So if this is happening in your relationship, you need to be the one to say, well, I just don't want to go over tonight. Sorry, I want to watch Netflix. And you go off and watch Netflix. That cuts the loop. If you continue by saying things like, well, yeah, I know I went over that day, but it's because I was free, but I'll try to make another day free, and please don't be angry, then we're getting into the loop again. So cutting the loop is going to be important here with this one. Another sign that's going to show that there may be less respect in a relationship is when you have in the composite chart Pluto square to Mercury. This is a stepping over of the boundaries of the other person's ideas and their opinions about life, but it's through a more subtle, persuasive, maybe a bit of a fanatic approach, where you're trying to subtly change the other person's way of thinking, but they're not coming around, so you're going to use even more subtle, strategic, maybe a little bit manipulative mind game techniques that's happening here to change the other person so they can think like you. But that's not going to happen when there's a square between Mercury and Pluto. Both people are doing it, and both people can be pretty stubborn. So with this aspect, to work with this one, both people are going to have to realize that you've both got your own truth, and people's truths don't have to line up. Everybody has their own journey in life, and they've come up with truth based on what they've experienced in their life. And so there may be certain aspects of your relationship where you and your partner are not going to agree or not going to have the same truth about certain things, but you can still listen to their opinions because you love them, and you don't have to adopt it, but you can still listen and you can still stick with your own truth. That's how you work with this. And the last sign that can show that there's there's little respect in the relationship is if you have the moon in a square, or maybe even opposite, or conjunction to Pluto in the composite chart. This is one where you're emotionally infringing on each other's emotional habits in a very subtle, manipulative way, where you're trying to get under their skin and you're trying to know their psychology by doing things that the other person, one of you, both of you maybe are doing this, are not comfortable with or are not ready for, but you're kind of going to push for it anyway because you want to bond so deeply, you want to get so intimate that you're going to suggest doing things or play with their emotions in a way that's very disturbing for each other, but it's because of the insecurity, the fear of loss that's coming up, that you feel like you can get rid of this if the other person could just only play along with some of your dramas of jealousy and possessiveness and sharing things about themselves that they would rather keep to themselves, just so that you can feel safer. Both of you are probably doing this in the relationship. And that's stepping over somebody's boundaries. That's not showing respect. If somebody tells you that they would very much not like to share this part of themselves, or they don't feel like they have to explain why they're doing certain things, but you still push it out of them because you feel insecure, that's not respectful of their wants and their needs. So, there are other factors that can show that there may not be much respect in the relationship, or that they may be respecting the relationship. And if you feel like you want to add anything, you can comment below and add to that, as well as comment below if you have any of these in your composite chart with a particular partner. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. If you already subscribed, thank you very much for coming along. I do birth charts and SYNASTRY reading. All the information is on my website. You can check it out. And yeah, I'll see you very soon, beautiful souls. Bye.